Tantor Audio presents Deception by C.J. Redwine. Narrated by Renée Chambliss. Chapter 1. Logan. "What are you going to tell them?" Rachel asks. She sits beside me, her scuffed boots touching mine, while long strands of her hair rise in the early morning breeze like fine lengths of copper wire. The dark bulk of the commander's compound crouches on the hill behind us, and the charred remains of Wasteland stretch out nearly as far as the eye can see. The truth. My voice sounds stronger than I feel. The truth of the situation facing the tiny group of Wasteland survivors is a complex creature full of shadows and secrets. I don't want to be the one to explain it, but I've done a lot of things I didn't want to do, including accepting the job of leading these people in the absence of the commander, who ran into the Wasteland the day of the fires and hasn't been heard from since. I suppose it's too much to hope that he fell off a cliff or got eaten by wolves. All of it? She sounds strong too, but her fingers clench into fists as if she's bracing herself. She looks past our camp. 4 rows of shelters made from cobbling together jagged slices of canvas, dead tree limbs, and bits of salvaged material that huddle beside the commander's compound like an outcast beggar too bedraggled to have any pride, and gazes south at the ruins of Wasteland itself. Almost all of it. I take her hand and rub my thumb across her skin as I look away from the city. We're responsible for calling the Cursed One to Wasteland, hoping to use the device Rachel's father inadvertently took from Rowan's mark to control the beast and destroy our brutal leader. It doesn't matter that we never intended for the monster to enter the city itself. It only matters that it did. And everywhere we look, we see death and destruction. We're responsible. But I can't say that to the survivors who sit scattered around the clearing at the center of our camp, eating their breakfasts and thinking their own thoughts as they stare at what's left of the lives they once knew. I'm going to tell them what we're up against and what we have to do to stay safe. Her fingers tighten over mine. They're going to argue. I'm going to win. She smiles, a slow lifting of the corners of her mouth that makes me wish I could turn back time to happier days, when her smile was as impulsive and honest as she was. She's right. They're going to argue, and complain, and question my judgment. I'd like to think that after 3 weeks of being their leader, I'd be used to it, that it wouldn't matter. But every argument, every sliver of doubt, simply amplifies my own. I'm too young for this. Too inexperienced. What do I know about leading people? Until the fires destroyed our city, killing thousands of people in the process, I'd been an outcast. I have no formal education, no job experience beyond apprenticing with Rachel's father, and am far more comfortable balancing a chemistry equation than dealing with most people. I keep waiting for Wasteland's survivors to figure out my deficiencies and change their minds about electing me to lead them. 3 days ago, 31 of Wasteland's survivors did just that. They declared me unfit to lead and headed east in hopes of finding shelter at one of the 3 eastern city-states, all of which are allied with the commander. I watched them go with what felt like needles in my chest, expecting the rest of the group to find me lacking and go east as well, half dreading it, half hoping for it. But 157 stayed, and now I get to put their faith in me to the test. My stomach feels like I swallowed an unstable chemical solution on a dare. I let go of Rachel's hand and push myself to my feet. The food wagon, one of only a handful of wagons we managed to salvage from the city's wreckage, perches on the eastern edge of the clearing. I climb onto the driver's seat, where I can be seen and heard by all. The first time I addressed the group was the afternoon the survivors elected me as their new leader. Drake, the man who met with a small group of revolutionaries in the dark corners of Tom's tankard, and who sent his daughter Nola to bring me medicine and food while I was locked in the commander's dungeon, gave a rousing speech that somehow resulted in a group of otherwise sane people voting a 19-year-old into a position of authority. Maybe it was because he reminded them that I'd stood up to the commander on the claiming stage, escaped the dungeons, the only person in Baelbaden's history to ever do so, and then blew up the gate to save us from the Cursed One. Or maybe it was because, out of a city-state of thousands, only a handful remained, and most of us didn't know each other before the fires. Thanks to my public confrontation with the commander, mine was the only face every survivor recognized. When Drake made me sound like a hero, like someone who knew exactly what to do, somehow nobody remembered that until that moment I had been nothing but an outcast to most of them. I doubt I'll sound like a hero now. Attention! I do my best to sound as crisp and authoritative as Rachel's father, Jared, used to when he was teaching me how to use a sword. The hum of conversations slowly subsides. My stomach squeezes painfully as 157 faces turn toward mine and wait. It's been 3 weeks since the Cursed One destroyed our city and the commander disappeared into the Wasteland with his entire army of guards. Everyone watches me in silence. We've buried our dead and mourned them. We've searched the buildings that weren't destroyed and stockpiled what we could salvage. We have enough medical supplies to hold us over for several months. We have canned and dried foods to supplement the game we bring in each day. We have weapons, and thanks to Quinn, Willow, and Rachel, 23 additional people are now learning how to defend us. Here and there, people crane their necks to see Quinn and Willow, the tree people Jared trusted to give the device to Rachel and me. But still, no one responds. I'm betting that's about to change. A brisk breeze kicks through the camp, tugging on loose flaps of canvas. I shrug my cloak closer to my shoulders, take a deep breath, and continue. And we need people to defend us if we're going to stay alive long enough to get to safety. The crowd shifts restlessly, and people begin whispering to each other. You mean we aren't staying here and rebuilding? You're taking us into the Wasteland? That's a death sentence, someone calls from the left. I turn and see Adam, a boy about my age. I recognize him from the group who meets daily to spar. He stands a little apart from everyone else, with his arms crossed over his chest, a clear challenge in his dark almond-shaped eyes. The uncomfortable squirming in my stomach settles. A challenge is much easier to face than the expectations I see written across almost every other face. Frankie J., a bear of a man who worked closely with Drake before Baelbaden burned, folds his huge freckled arms across his chest and stares at him down until he looks away. I raise my voice above the murmurs spreading across the field and say, "Rebuild with what? We don't have those kind of supplies. Besides, we'd never get the gate repaired in time to save us from our enemies." "What enemies?" another man calls from my right. "We've never hurt anyone." Others voice their agreement, and soon conversations erupt across the field. "Quiet!" Frankie's voice cracks through the air like a whip, and silence descends. He slaps one large freckled fist into his other palm in a clear message that he'd be happy to gain their cooperation, with or without their consent. I nod my thanks to him and face the crowd. There's a reason every city-state is surrounded by a wall. A reason every gate is guarded. "Yes, and all of those reasons are in the Wasteland," a woman yells. "For now. But what happens when word gets around that our gate is in ruins, that our city is easily plundered, that we have girls in our camp, but we don't have enough trained guards to be able to defend them against a mob of highwaymen or worse?" I ask. "What could be worse than highwaymen?" a girl near the front asks. I clench my fists and prepare to lay the truth on the table, one miserable piece at a time. An army. There's a beat of silence, and then a tall woman with brown skin and graying brown hair says, "What city-state would send an army to attack us? We've done nothing wrong." Rowansmark attacked representatives of Baelbaden in an unprovoked act of war just before our city burned, and they control the south. The words have barely left my mouth when Ian, another boy my age who trains with the sparring group, steps away from the wagon he'd been leaning on. The morning sun carves deep shadows beneath his cheekbones. Why would Rowansmark do that? Because James Rowan thinks the commander stole a very important piece of tech. He won't stop until he gets it back, I say, and catch myself reaching toward the device strapped to my chest beneath my tunic. Why not just make another one? What a waste of manpower, Adam says. And let a theft go unpunished? Ian shakes his head. You don't know much about Rowansmark, do you? No, he doesn't. Most of us don't. Other than Rachel, I don't know anyone in our group who's been to Rowansmark. And you do? I ask Ian. He shrugs. I know what I learned in school, just like everyone else. Since the commander wouldn't allow me to attend school, I have no answer for that. It's a stain on their honor, Rachel says from behind the food wagon. Another city-state successfully stole one of their inventions and refuses to return it. Their honor can't be redeemed until the tech is returned and the thief pays the price for his crime. Plus, they might not want anyone else to be able to copy their design. Elias, a young man who often helps guard the camp, says. I make sure my next words are very clear. Which is another reason why we can't stay here. The commander wants to copy their design, and he's convinced I have the stolen tech. We already know the commander allows nothing to stand in the way of what he wants. I don't know where he went, or if he's called in a favor from one of his southeastern allies, but I do know that he won't let this go. I sweep the crowd with my gaze. The only reason we didn't leave earlier is because those who were injured in the fire weren't well enough to travel. And because we needed enough time to find a way for us to escape these ruins without leaving a trail. Where will we go? How on earth can we travel without leaving a trail? Won't we be killed in the Wasteland? The questions fly at me from every corner of the clearing, and I raise my voice. We're going north. As for traveling without leaving a trail, I look at Drake, Frankie, and Tom, the burly owner of Tom's Tankard, who never has much to say, but who silently guards my back with a steadfast loyalty I feel sure I haven't earned. Then gaze out at the survivors again. With the help of a handful of men, I've been working on that. We're digging a tunnel from the compound's basement as far into the northern wasteland as we can get before surfacing. By traveling underground for at least 1,000 yards, will be impossible to track. It will be like we just vanished off the face of the earth. We can't travel underground, a man near Adam shouts. We'll be killed by the Cursed One. I can keep us safe. More murmuring, more questions, more complaints from the crowd. I grit my teeth and feel an unwelcome stab of understanding for the commander's absolute refusal to entertain any discussion on his decisions. Trying to get 157 opinionated people to agree on a course of action is harder than trying to herd a bunch of fighting tomcats out of an alley. Listen to me. Rowansmark is coming for us from the south. The commander will be coming from the east. A river cuts us off to the west. North is the only logical choice. We'll travel to Lancashire. They have no alliances with the commander or Rowansmark. We'll try to secure an alliance of our own with them. And if we can't? Ian asks, and several heads nod in agreement. I think once they see what we bring to the table, they're going to want us on their side. Ian laughs. A tiny remnant of survivors with barely enough skill to find food and water? Why should they extend us any kind of protection? I take a deep breath. Because we have the tech that was stolen from Rowan's Mark, and it will be worth a small fortune to another city-state. I let the words fill the clearing. Let my voice ring out so no one doubts that we have to leave before our enemies arrive, and that I can keep us safe while we travel. Ian stares at me in silence, and I turn to find the rest of the group staring at me as well. Shouldn't we give it back? Someone asks. Others murmur their agreement, and suddenly I've had enough. I straighten my spine and speak as forcefully as possible. That piece of tech is going to keep us safe as we cross the Wasteland, and it's our only leverage for creating a new alliance. Besides, who would we give it to? To the commander, who has already killed innocent people in his efforts to get his hands on it? He'd abuse the power in this tech, just like he abuses everything else he touches. To Rowan's Mark, that would be giving them unlimited power over every other city-state. No one could stop them. What do you mean? Adam asks. The tech the commander tried to steal from Rowan's Mark is a device that can call and control the Cursed One, Rachel says, her voice cold, her blue eyes sharp. Who knows how many of those they've created? If we give it back, then we voluntarily give Rowan's Mark the power to obliterate any city whose leader falls out of favor with James Rowan. Or to obliterate us. I nod. But if we keep it, we can protect ourselves from the Cursed One while traveling through the Wasteland. And we can prove to the other city-states that Rowan's Mark is a true threat. And given enough time, I can duplicate it so that our new allies aren't defenseless. That's your plan, Ian asks. Duplicate stolen technology and turn it against Rowan's Mark. There's a curious intensity to his voice. Yes. I don't try to justify myself. I don't have that luxury. I have 157 people to keep safe and 2 power-hungry leaders to thwart. I'll do what I must. Why didn't you use it? Adam says, and the pain in his voice echoes the pain inside of me. If you have the tech, why didn't you save Baal Baden when the Cursed One tunneled under the wall? I tried. The device malfunctioned. Before the murmurs can start up again, I throw a hand into the air, palm out, and say, I've fixed the problem. I can't turn back time and save our city, but I can keep us safe until we make a new alliance. Our only other choice is to sit here and wait for either the commander or Rowan's Mark to destroy us. I'm not willing to do that. The people whisper and shift closer together, but no one offers another argument. We leave in 2 days, sooner if we can manage. Drake, Nola, and Tom are in charge of packing up our supplies, loading the wagons, and completing the tunnel. If they ask for your help, you will give it to them. I wait a beat, but no one questions me. We'll need a map of the Northern Territories, especially the road to Lancashire. Has anyone been there? A voice speaks up from the middle of the crowd. Many times. It's about an 18-day journey, maybe 20 with a group our size. I glance at the speaker, a short, weathered man with wispy gray hair and a brilliant purple cloth tied in a bow at his neck. He crushes a battered hat between fingers as brown and bent as twigs as he meets my gaze. Jeremiah Crunkle, sir. Head groom to the commander for nigh unto 30 years. Done my fair share of travel. I stare him down. 30 years of loyal service to the commander. Why not leave with the others 3 days ago and seek asylum at one of the southeastern city-states? Why follow me? Jeremiah's pale eyes lock onto mine. Figured 30 years of brutality was more than any man should have to bear. Fair enough. Can you draw me a map? Jeremiah stands and shoves his hat onto his head. His fingers curl and twist like hairs held too close to a fire. Have a bit of trouble holding a quill these days, but I'll manage. There are drawing supplies inside the compound. Meet me there in 20 minutes and I'll show you. I look at the rest of the crowd. We're going out through the tunnel. I'll collapse the basement ceiling in the compound to cover our tracks. It will be like we simply vanished. Until then, though, we have 2 days and a lot of work to do. Let's get started. As the crowd slowly disperses, I gaze out past the city's wall at the vast expanse of the wasteland that stands between us and safety. Best case scenario, everything runs smoothly and we're able to leave within the next 2 days without anyone realizing we're gone. Worst case scenario, Rowan's Mark or the commander arrives before we leave, and I'm forced to flee across the wasteland with a group of untrained, inexperienced men, women, and children, while an army closes in behind us. Because I've never once known anything to go according to plan, I dismiss the group and then head to my tent, where my pack of salvaged tech supplies beckons to me. I might put most of my faith in the tunnel, Rowan's Mark's tech, and the steadily improving fighting abilities of those who are training each morning, but it never hurts to have a backup plan. Just in case. Chapter 2. Rachel. After Logan's speech, I approached the training ground, located 15 yards away from the first line of tents that mark our camp. Willow is already waiting for me, her olive skin glowing in the sun. The rest of the survivors are hurrying toward their various job assignments, casting furtive glances at the distant wall that surrounds Baelbaden, as if wondering when Rowan's Mark might arrive to claim their stolen tech. Quinn, Willow's older brother, weaves around the scattering of people walking through this row of shelters, his movements graceful and controlled. I stop at the edge of the training ground and wait for him. His dark hair has grown past his shoulders, but unlike Willow, he doesn't seem to care about restraining it before our practice sessions. He still wears the leather breeches and rough-spun tunic of the tree village that declared him an outcast before he met up with me in the Wasteland to fulfill my father's last wish. "I heard you screaming in your sleep last night," he says as he walks up to me. His voice is as calm and emotionless as always. "I was walking past your tent after my guard shift." I glare at him. What, no hello, no small talk, just straight into things that are none of your business? "Rachel." His tone is gentle but unyielding. "We're friends. How is it none of my business?" I sigh. "They're just nightmares. They'll pass." "Not until you face what causes them." There's a glimmer of pain buried in his words, but I have to search to find it. I used to hate the way Quinn always holds himself under such tight control, especially after he told me that, like me, he'd killed a man he wasn't sure deserved it. Back then, fury and guilt burned inside me with equal strength, and I couldn't help but scorch everything I touched. But fires only burn until you starve them for fuel, and the ashes of my fury are as cold and silent as the streets of Lower Market. I'll face what causes my nightmares as soon as we drop all these people off at Lancashire, and I can search for the commander without risking their lives. My lips feel stiff with cold, though the morning is warm. It's like the icy silence that swallowed the grief of losing Oliver, my father, and my city, is leaching the warmth from my skin. I walk toward the group waiting on the practice field without a backward glance, while the silence inside of me shivers. A breeze lifts silvery bits of ash from the wreckage behind us and slaps us in the face with grit as the 23 survivors who faithfully attended every practice session spread out on the field. A pile of salvaged knives and swords lies to my right, and a stack of practice sticks fashioned from tree limbs is on my left. A few have reached the point where they can train with real weapons, but most are still using the practice sticks. I clear my throat, and 23 pairs of eyes lock on me. My best friend Sylph is here, her curly dark hair tied back with rope, along with her new husband, Smithson. Jody, a small blonde girl I recognize from my few years at Life Skills, the domestic arts class all Balebadden girls attended in place of a real education, stands next to Tom, who must have found someone to take his place in the tunnel in order to attend this session. A small knot of boys, most of them younger than me, stand close to Willow, eyeing her hopefully. Ian stands near her as well, the sun painting his brown hair gold as he flashes a charming smile in her direction whenever she makes eye contact. Most of the girls in camp melt when Ian aims one of his smiles at them. Willow is a notable exception. Another boy elbows his way to the front of the pack, and I roll my eyes. If we could get the rest of the survivors as interested in Willow's instruction, we'd have a battalion full of trained soldiers in no time. "Are we going to get started or what?" someone asks. I look past Tom and see Adam. Bruises mar his golden skin, and his dark eyes glare into mine. He'd be almost pretty if someone hadn't recently used him as a punching bag. "Get in another fight?" I ask him. "He deserved it." His expression is mutinous. "You always think everyone deserves it. What if you're wrong?" Melkin's face, pale and cold, burns into my memory, and I shove it away before I can remember the terrible wet sound of my knife sliding into his chest, before his blood pours over my hands, a stain I'll wear beneath my skin for the rest of my life. Adam glares at me. "I'm not wrong. This," he gestures at the ruins behind us, "this is what's wrong." "I know," I say, and turn away from the pain I see in his eyes. He needs comfort, and I'm out. "That and the fact that our true leader disappeared into the Wasteland, and we've got a 19-year-old boy trying to take his place." Adam's voice is sharp with derision, but beneath it I hear the kind of fathomless grief that drags you under until you no longer care if you ever find the surface again. Blinking away the stark memory of my father's grave, I walk toward Adam. I recognize the fury that drives him. I once used something like it as fuel to give me a reason to face one more day, to take one more step forward, even though it meant leaving behind the life I once thought I'd have. Stopping in front of him, I ask, "Who did you lose in the fire?" He glares at me. "Everyone!" Waving a hand at the unending sea of destruction at my back, he flings his words at me like a challenge he doesn't think I'll answer. "I lost everyone. You?" "I lost everyone I loved long before. Everyone but Logan." "Lucky for you," he says and looks away. "Must be nice not to have watched your family burn." "Oh yes, I'm very lucky." My voice is as unyielding as his. "I'm so incredibly fortunate that I had to watch my grandfather die in front of me because our true leader decided killing a harmless baker to get my cooperation was acceptable. So fortunate that my father was a man of honor who tried to stop our leader's treachery and paid for it with his life." He meets my eyes, and I step closer. "By the time our city burned, I had no family left to lose. So don't you stand there and call me lucky. Don't you shame Logan by referring to the commander as our true leader, when all he ever delivered to us was heartbreak, fear, and death." For one terrible instant, Adam's face blurs and bends until the commander stands before me, his sword dripping Oliver's blood in a river of crimson that refuses to stop, no matter how hard I beg. I don't remember releasing the blade on the switch, but it gleams silver sharp in the sunlight as I lift my arm. Quinn is at my side a second later, his hand pressed firmly against my shoulder. Silence holds us captive for a long moment as Adam looks from me to Quinn. Slowly I lower my arm and step back. "Break into 3 groups now, please," Quinn says, and the 23 survivors, now armed with practice sticks, slowly gravitate toward Willow, Quinn, and me. Mostly toward Willow, who seems oblivious to the way the boys watch her every move with hungry, admiring eyes, or the way the girls pretend indifference but are careful to copy her stance and the tilt of her chin. Adam stares me down for another second, then moves to Willow's side. I wish her luck. Jody, Tom, Sylph, and Smithson surround me in our corner of the practice field. A man old enough to be my father joins us as well, along with 3 boys who can't possibly be more than 14.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?